Muhammad had no particular job at his early youth, but it was reported that he worked as a shepherd for Bani Sa'd and in Makkah for a wage. At the age of 25, he went to Syria as a merchant for Khadija. Ibn Ishaq reported that Khadija, daughter of Khuwailid, was a businesswoman of great honor and fortune. She used to employ men to do her business for a certain percentage of the profits. The Quraysh were merchants, so when Khadija was informed of Muhammad, his truthful words, great honesty, and kind manners, she sent for him. She offered him money to go to Syria and do business for her, and she would give him a higher rate than the others. She would also send her servant Maisara with him. He agreed and went with her servant to Syria for trade. When he returned to Makkah, Khadija noticed greater profits and blessings in her business than usual. Her servant also told her of Muhammad's good manners, honesty, deep thought, sincerity, and faith. Upon realizing this, she developed a wish for marriage. Earlier, many prominent men had asked for her hand in marriage, but she had always refused their advances. She disclosed her wish to her friend Nafisa, daughter of Munia, who immediately went to Muhammad to inform him. He agreed and requested his uncles to go to Khadija's uncle to discuss the matter. Subsequently, they were married. The marriage agreement was witnessed by Bani Hashim and the chiefs of Mudar. This took place after the Prophet's return from Syria. He gave her 20 camels as a dowry. At the time, she was 40 years old and was considered the best of women in lineage, fortune, and wisdom. She was the first woman Allah's Messenger married. He did not get married to any other until she passed away. With the exception of Ibrahim, Khadija bore all of his children, Al-Qasim, Zainab, Ruqayya, Kulthum, Fatima, and Abdullah, who was also called Tayyib and Tayyib. All his sons died in their childhood, and all the daughters except Fatima died during his lifetime. Fatima died 6 months after his death. All his daughters witnessed Islam, embraced it, and emigrated to Medina. When Allah's Messenger was 35, the Quraysh started rebuilding Al-Kaaba. This was because it was a low building of white stones no more than 9 arms length from the days of Ismail. It was also roofless, leaving thieves with easy access to the treasures inside. It was also exposed to the varying forces of nature that weakened and cracked its walls, since it was built so long ago. 5 years before the advent of prophethood, there was a great flood in Makkah that swept towards Al-Kaaba and almost demolished it. The Quraysh were obliged to rebuild it to safeguard its sanctity and position. The chiefs of the Quraysh decided to only use lawful money in rebuilding Al-Kaaba, so all money derived from immoral means, usury or unjust practice, was excluded. At first, they were too fearful to knock down the wall, but Al-Walid bin Al-Mughira al-Makhzumi began the task. Seeing that he was unharmed, others participated in demolishing the walls until they reached the foundation laid by Ibrahim. When they started rebuilding its walls, they divided the work among the tribes such that each tribe was responsible for rebuilding a part of it. The different tribes collected stones and started work. The man who laid the stones was a Roman mason called Bakum. The work went on in harmony until the time came to restore the sacred black stone to its proper place. Strife broke out among the chiefs and lasted for 4 or 5 days, each contesting for the honor of placing the stone in its position. Daggers were on the point of being drawn, and great bloodshed seemed imminent. Luckily, the oldest among the chiefs, Abu Umayyah bin Mughira al-Makhzumi, made a proposal that was accepted by all. He said, "Let him who enters the sanctuary first of all decide on the point." It was then Allah's will that the Messenger of Allah should be the first to enter the masjid. On seeing him, all the people present cried with one voice, "Al-Amin, the trustworthy, has come. We are content to abide by his decision." They informed him of their objective. He asked for a mantle and spread it on the ground, placing the stone in its center. He then asked the representatives of the different clans among them to lift the stone all together. When it reached the proper place, Muhammad laid it in the original position with his own hands. This is how a very tense situation was eased and a grave danger averted by the wisdom of the Prophet. The Quraysh ran out of the lawful money they had collected, so they eliminated an area covering 6 arms length on the northern side of Al-Kaaba, which is called Al-Hijr or Al-Hatim. They raised its door from the level ground to let in only the people whom they wished. When the structure was 15 arm lengths high, they erected the roof, which rested on 6 columns. When the construction of Al-Kaaba was complete, it assumed a square form about 15 meters high. The side with the black stone and the one opposite were 10 meters long each. The black stone was 1.5 meters from the circumambulation level ground. The two other sides were 12 meters long each. The door was 2 meters high from the level ground. A building structure 0.25 meter high and 0.3 meter wide on the average surrounded Al-Kaaba. It was called Ash-Shadar-1, originally an integral part of the sacred sanctuary, but the Quraysh left it out. In his youth, Prophet Muhammad was a combination of the best social attributes. He was an exemplary man with a weighty mind and faultless insight. He was favored with intelligence, originality of thought, and accurate means leading to his goals. His periods of long silence helped his habit of meditation and deep investigation into the truth. His vivid mind and pure nature were instrumental in assimilating and comprehending ways of life and people from the point of view of the individual and community. He shunned superstitious practices but took an active part in constructive and useful dealings. Otherwise, he would have taken a route to his self-adopted seclusion. He kept himself aloof from drinking wine, eating meat slaughtered on stone altars, or attending the festivals of the idolaters. He held the idols in extreme aversion and disgust. He could never tolerate someone swearing by Allah and Al-Uzza. Allah's guidance and care, no doubts, detached him from all repulsive or evil practices. Even when he tried to follow his desire to enjoy some worldly pleasures or follow some unrespectable traditions, Allah's providence intervened to control any slip on his part. Ibn al-Ath reported Muhammad saying, "I have never tried to do anything the people of ignorance did except for 2 times. Every time Allah intervened and checked me from doing so, and I never did that again. Once I told my fellow shepherd to take care of my sheep when we were in the upper part of Makkah. I wanted to go down to Makkah and entertain myself as the young men did. I went down to the first house in Makkah where I heard music. I entered and asked, 'What is this?' Someone answered, 'It is a wedding party.' I sat down and listened, but soon went into a deep sleep. I was awakened by the heat of the sun. I went back to my fellow shepherd and told him what happened to me. I never tried it again." Al-Bukhari reported on the authority of Jabir bin Abdullah that he said, "While the people were rebuilding Al-Kaaba, the Prophet Muhammad went with Abbas to carry some stones. Abbas said, 'Put your loincloth round your neck to protect you from the stones.' As he did that, the Prophet fell to the ground and his eyes turned skyward. Later on, he woke up and called, 'My loincloth, my loincloth.' He wrapped himself in his loincloth. In another report, his loins were never seen after. The Prophet was distinguished among his people for his modesty, virtuous behavior, and graceful manners. He proved himself to be the ideal of manhood and to possess a spotless character. He was the most obliging to his compatriots, the most honest in his speech, and the mildest in temper. He was the most gentle-hearted, chaste, and hospitable. He always impressed people by his virtuous words and expressions. He was the most truthful and the best to keep a covenant. His fellow citizens, by common consent, gave him the title of Al-Amin, the trustworthy. The mother of believers, Khadija, once said, "He maintains ties of kinship, helps the poor and the needy. He entertains the guests and stands with the oppressed for